Live.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Fandom Feels Book Club by thefandom.net. Today we are going to be discussing a book that we're all really excited about. It is Pierce Brown's Morning Star, which is the third book. And yeah, we all freaked out over this book. And this is going to be a big old geek out session, and I'm not sorry. But if you want to geek out with us, which you should, please follow along with the hashtag FandomFeels. Throw in your input. If we have any good comments, we'll throw them in the air and spread the love a little bit. You can also comment on our Google Plus page. So we look forward to chatting about this with you. And today I'm Kate. I'm Kate every day. But today I'm joined by Natasha.
Howdy.
And Ellie.
Hi.
And let's dive right in. So, Golden Sun. On a scale of 1 to 10, how badly did the end of that book kill you?
A Golden Sun.
Like, how the seed that went into your chest?
27.
Why 27?
I use that number a lot when I'm trying to think of a random number above 10. I don't know. 92 is also a very common one I use.
But that might be stretching it just a wee bit.
I mean,
I go
that's
with
9
11.
times 10. That's a little much.
Well, I say 11.
They did, in fact, take it to 11. I will agree with that.
Not 27.
I was going to go with like 44, so I'm not going to
Okay.
go. But yeah, that book was awful, and this book, it doesn't feel...
Wait, Kate, disclaimer. Kate means awful in like the most amazing way.
Yes, it was awful. It was emotionally awful. Like, when it ended, I was crying, I was yelling. It was a very bad time for me to relive, but it was also amazing. And going into this next book, we start with Darrow he's being kept in a table, which is the weirdest.
Sorry.
It's not funny. That's not
I
funny.
know, it's so
That's
awful.
not funny, Ellie.
It's a
Sorry,
prison.
I'm just gonna randomly have bursts of fangirl through the night, and I apologize right now.
But
Sometimes at terrible times.
you keep your enemies in a stone slab of a table for, I believe he's there for like 9 months, or is it a
Something
year?
like that.
I think it's 9 months.
It's about 9 months.
And then he gets busted out, kind of unexpectedly, by two rays.
Well,
They are...
Can we talk about the fact that like he didn't even know he was in a table?
I think he was roughly aware.
He knew that there
Because-
were people, like he could hear people.
Well, that's the thing. Well, he didn't know specifically that it was a table, and I hate to bring this up as my point of reference, but I remember it because it was like, is that he remembers Antonio and the jackal having sex on top of wherever he was located.
Antonia.
What?
I thought you said Antonio, so I was like, it's
Antonia.
Antonia.
But that's how I know. He knew he was in some sort of space that people could
Do stuff?
be around.
Go horizontal on?
Yeah, he has released. And at the point that Holly and Trig find him, who are these new characters who I fell in love with pretty instantly, which doesn't happen. But I was just like, they come in and they're in charge. They're totally badass. They know what they're doing, and they just like take out everyone who might be a threat, go around their business. When he says that he wants to save Victra, even though a lot of people think that he shouldn't, they go along with it. And I knew it was going to happen because right before the scene, Trig stops and, like, kisses his wedding ring. I'm putting up the wrong hand. Kisses his wedding ring. And, like, half a chapter later, he's dead. But we still get Holly, who is an awesome character throughout. And from there, we dive deeper into the, we'll call it the revolution, the rebellion that's now being led by Severo, who has revealed to the world that Darrow is indeed a red pretending to be gold.
By showing his carving.
Mm-hmm. Like, he showed the world everything. Do you think that was a good idea on his part?
Everything that Severo did was kind of like, I don't know, it was kind of like in your face, and I don't know if it was well thought out, because that's kind of how Severo is. He just kind of goes by the seat of his pants. I don't know if it was a good idea, but I don't think I would have argued with him about it if, you know, if, say, I was there and he asked my opinion. I'd be like, I don't know. But, you know, in hindsight, I probably would have said, yeah, we probably could have saved that for, you know, something else. And the problem is the fact is we didn't know whether or not Darrow was alive. So that was probably something that kind of triggered the idea of revealing his carving in the first place. So for me, I don't know. I'm kind of like, what, you know, either or at that point. I probably would have said, you know, if that's what Severo wants to do, I'd be like, okay, go for it, you know, and see what happens. But probably wasn't the best idea.
What do you think, Ellie?
Sorry. Okay. One more disclaimer. If I randomly burst into tears at any point, I apologize, because one thing in this book just, like, leads to another in my head, and I'm about to start crying, even though we have not talked about many sad things yet. Anyway, I didn't love the fact that he had done that, partly because we were seeing it in Darrow's head, and Darrow was like, invasion of privacy much, but it did work out in the end. Like, it got the reaction that they were hoping for. I personally think I would have gone about it a different way.
Yeah, it's definitely a hard one to say, because I don't know, like, I don't know if it was the best idea, but I think it worked, because even if Darrow were to get out, you know, unscathed, and nobody believed that he was part of any sort of rebellion effort, I don't think he was at the point where the gold community was going to accept him back with open arms at any time. So why not just be like, hey, this is the truth, and let everyone in we'll just refer to them as lower classes, or the people who are treated lesser within the society, use that as a point to rise up.
Mm-hmm.
True.
So I don't know. It's one of those tough moments, but it's definitely, you could see in the beginning that there's this kind of rift between Darrow and Severo going on. And I think a lot of it has to do with maturity levels and where those characters are at. So who do you think actually has matured over the course of this? Have either of them really?
Well, I definitely think that that they both have, but I believe that Darrow did more for sure. I mean, the thing is that you know, Darrow had to go through a whole lot more than I think Severo did, even with the loss. I mean, but just the idea of him being encased in that prison or in that box that he was in, you know, he had a lot of time to think about everything, and it kind of, I don't know, it gave him, you know, a much more humble attitude, I guess. But they still had a lot to learn. I mean, they had, you know, a whole lot of followers, and they didn't know what to do with them. But it's still a learning curve for both of them. And essentially, you know, overall, yeah, I believe Darrow was the one that matured the most. This funny thing is that probably Mustang is the one that matured the least because she was already up there and matured enough already, so there wasn't much for her to mature from. But yeah, when I think about all the characters, like even including like Cassius and Victra, and a bunch of the other ones, I still think Darrow is probably the one that tops the maturity.
Yeah.
Cassius matured a lot, though, actually.
When you really consider that, yes. But, well, we're going to get into spoilers, so I guess it's not a spoiler.
I mean, yeah.
But, you know, the level of his maturity, we're going to freak out about.
Towards the end, yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, no, my thing is, like, the first word I think of when I think about Severo is definitely not mature. I love Severo. He's hilarious. Not mature. Is he more mature than he probably was? Yes. Does he still make fart jokes every second that he can? Yes. I think he's grown a lot, and I think that he has taken on a lot of responsibility and accepted things that were difficult for him. I still don't fully feel comfortable using the word mature for him, though.
That makes sense. I feel like I agree where he's clearly taken on a lot of responsibility, but I don't think he's fully mature. But I think Darrow has some issues with maturity too.
Fair.
But there's this scene right after they've broken into Julie Industries, and they've taken back their hostage, who turns out to be working for the Rising. And Severo doesn't necessarily believe him, doesn't want to go along with it, and Darrow does believe him, and they just all of a sudden start punching each other. And they punch each other silly for about 5 minutes, and the second it's over, it's like, you okay, bro? We good? Yeah,
They're boys!
Yeah, it's one of those moments that I'm
I don't get it!
This is such a guy thing to do. And
like,
I'm gonna pretend I've never, I've seen people actually do that. Usually they're a little drunk at the time, but I have definitely seen
totally!
who have kind of, roughed each other up a bit, and it's like, alright, I feel better. We're good now.
And it happens all the time in books and movies. Anytime there's, a bromance, there's some time when they're just going to punch the shit out of each other and then be best friends again after. And as a girl, it blows my mind. But anyway.
I believe for a guy, though, that just kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it's you get your aggression out, and then you're done with it.
And that's the part that I admire about guys, is that they're able to let it go afterwards, whereas certain
girls
females,
hold grudges.
mostly all females, have a hard time letting go of stuff.
I have
You know,
no
it's
idea.
like,
I have no idea what you're talking about, and I'm never gonna forget that you said that.
what are you talking about? I'm just saying in general.
I was proving your point.
I wasn't doing anything, saying anything specific.
I was joking. I was proving your point, and I'm holding a grudge against you now, and I'm never gonna forget it.
Okay, fine. Anyway.
So now that grudges are happening, let's move on to this story. Kind of decimated a lot of characters, and there was a lot of death and like important deaths. And which one would you say hit you the hardest?
A real death?
Yes, we'll stick with the real deaths for now.
Ragnar's hit me.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he's definitely like, you know, the fact that he, you know, he changed so much from when you meet him, and he's become this like guardian basically for Darrow, and he's done so much for Darrow, protected him and protected even those that, you know, Darrow cared about, and he was so loyal, and you don't get that loyalty a lot. And but yeah, just the whole. I even thought when I was talking about it to a certain author, I won't say who. You know, I was like, it took him a long time to die, and then he was like saying, well, Ragnar's a big guy and stuff, and but you know, during that time, I was just like, it was so hard. I mean, it was the length of his death just made me cry, like during that whole time, that whole segment, and so I guess his was definitely the hardest to deal with.
It's crying right now. I'm sorry.
Right, I'm fine.
No.
I'm tearing. I'm not actually crying yet.
But what it is that, you know, I'm like, he's like saying all this stuff, and you're just like, it's dragging on. I'm like, Pierce is really wanting us to cry. But it was so painful. It was really painful, and it was beautiful, and it was sad, and you were mad at what's her face, Aja. You just wanted, oh my gosh, I'm like, I just wanted. I've never like had like so much hatred for a character than Aja, which is weird because I didn't have that much hatred for like the Jackal either. But Aja really hit me when she did that to Ragnar. So
I agree about it took him a very long time to die, and you guys know that is a slight peeve of mine. Like a certain author said to Nat that, you know, when you're a big dude, I guess it takes a while longer to bleed out. And so that death did hit me. And of course, I think another one that did in a very, probably the most complex way was Roke. Could you sympathize with him? Or
I thought it was interesting that, so he got his little speech, and I'm not going to call it redemption because it wasn't redemption, but he got a moment to, like, explain himself, kind of, and you just saw that there was a lack of, understanding humanity in him. And he wasn't sorry for anything that he had done because he truly believed that he was doing things that were for the best, which, again, it's not redemption, but it was definitely interesting.
I was conflicted. I think there was a little bit of regret though, because of the fact. And, you know, they explained this when Cassius, and this is another part that I cried. I mean, not a lot of people.
When they were watching the video?
Yeah. when not a
Oh my
lot of people
God.
had the sympathy for Rook, but when they were watching the video and they were seeing, and even Darrow explains that this was the most watched video that he had played, was of them together, and at that point, I mean, I lose it all the time, so
Well,
it was easy for me to lose it. But yeah, I think a little part of him just, I guess he doesn't regret
oh,
doing what he did, but he
right.
regrets
That
the
it turned out the way it did.
not being able to not being able to go back to that, or just missing that, missing the what they had, the bromance that they had. And
Right.
but I felt very sympathetic to him. I was conflicted though, because I know that his his idea of what should be right wasn't right at all. But you can compare it to how people think nowadays, even in regards to certain religions and stuff and what they believe, and how it doesn't really fly with a lot of other people's beliefs, and it's kind of the same thing in that sense. So I feel sympathetic for Rogue, and I was really sad of what he did, but at the same time, um, I was kind of like if only he was in the right, I could admire him,
Yeah.
for what he did, but he wasn't.
He definitely was not, and I just wanted to say, going back to the moments when we're talking about the video and how he watched that all the time, I couldn't help think of, like, it's almost, there's a lot of going back and forth with adulthood and childhood, and it's almost very Stand By Me-ish. Like, these are the moments, and you're never gonna get that back, like your friends and your youth. And there's all this sorts of popular quotes about, you'll never have friends like the ones you had when you
Yeah,
were.
that's true. Very true. I love that movie.
I think that's the vibe that you get from him there, and it does make you want to be sympathetic. But like you said, there's something that's like, it's cult-like and indoctrinated in the way that he thinks, and he's just so very wrong about the world and so very stuck on this particular honor code that he's willing to die for it, knowing that he'll still be disgraced either way, but he'd rather die than be the,
Be part of
part of
this.
so actively in
Yeah.
gold society. So
Yeah.
it's disturbing, but
It's
also,
disturbing, but it's so realistic, as in the ways that people think nowadays too. How strongly they believe in something, they they would be willing to do stuff isn't that just doesn't go well. But yeah, I felt sympathetic for him, and I think I felt more sympathetic to Darrow for losing such an amazing friend.
well,
Like,
because he thought
For
that,
someone who had once been such an amazing friend.
well,
well,
yeah, but I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah.
Darren definitely thought that on some level he could still save Rogue. Like, if he just got to him, which he did in the end, that he could convince him that what he thought was wrong and save him and bring him to their side. And it.
I think he more hoped than truly thought so.
Yeah.
Who knows?
But well, yeah, I mean, he hoped, but I believe that his hope was realistic enough to where he thought he could, he could save him, because the only thing that prevented Darrow from saving, from helping Roke is Roke, he was,
Mm-hmm.
so it kind of sucked. And I'll cry every single time about it. I mean, I tear up, I guess, every single time about it. I'll cry off screen. Let's do that.
And I think those were the two that had really big impacts besides the one that I think it's okay to get to right now, which was definitely the most shocking scene for all of us, and it I know that it jarred us all when
Wait, whoa. Before we get ahead, I just want to talk in Ragnar's scene. I also want to talk about the fact that as he was dying, he gave Darrow permission to kill his mother.
Well, he knew his mom was not going to listen to it.
I know, but that's crazy.
But that's the way his mom is.
I know. But can you imagine being like, I'm dying. Oh, by the way, kill my mother if you have to. Ugh.
Cause his mother was probably not that much of a mother to him. So it probably wasn't that hard for him to say, oh, kill my mother. As compared to, like, say, Darrow trying to say, you can kill my mother. That's totally different.
Darrow's mother's awesome.
Of course she is. That's why Darrow's awesome, because his mom was awesome.
All right, so we get to move on?
Sorry,
yes. Yeah. No problem. No, was there any... I realized that this moment that we want to talk about is in, like, the last 20% of the book, but I feel like we are going to spend
we have a lot of feels about it.
So, the group decides at the end of this mission, or at the beginning of this mission, that one of the best things they can do is just set Cassius free. Just let him go back.
Wait, sorry. I need to talk for I'm sorry!
Girl, we only have half an hour left.
I know, but I have so much I want to talk about. Wait. Right before this, everything's going crazy, and Ragnar's sister takes over, and they decide that they're going to kill Cassius.
Oh, yeah.
And in order to stop this from happening, Severo is like, all right, let's kill him, and pushes him because he's a murderer, and then says, oh wait, I'm a murderer too, and since murderers die, and he goes and he jumps off, knowing that they don't want Severo to die. So, and yet he just hung himself. Like, he literally just hung himself to prove a point.
Severo's freaking crazy, and it's amazing.
He's insane, but he literally almost kills himself.
And then you know what?
To prove that Cassius shouldn't die. Which, by the way, ends up making Victra be like, oh, he's insane, but I love him, and we should get married. And then, look, Severo's so happy. Okay, now set up for the other scene.
That was his game plan all along.
What?
Just to like, get. I know it wasn't actually his game plan. He was creating sympathy and making a point that they were all murderers and etc.
Right.
Et but I mean, getting back together with Victra, that was pretty plus. And then he got married, and we all know.
They were so happy! Yay! Happiness always lasts in books like this.
Yeah. It always happens, especially for the guys. I mean, I don't know what it is, but if you are a
Lupin.
Okay, let Kate finish.
Works out so well.
So of course they let Cassius out. He turns around, and he shoots the crap out of Severo. And I am mortified. This is the point at which I start sending messages to the two of them every 2 seconds. I'm like, oh my god, Cassius just killed Severo. I don't know if I can read anymore.
Something for viewers to know. Nat read this first. Then me. Well, I mean, like, so Kate and I started reading it at the same time. Nat had been able to read it before us.
Yeah, she had an arc.
I finished it a couple days before Kate. So at first, I was texting Natasha every 5 seconds, being like, "Oh my God, what is happening? This is terrible!" Blah blah blah. And then Kate starts sending both of us like the same exact messages. Go on.
And thankfully, I was given the hint that Ellie wasn't, which was just keep reading, and like nobody ever said anything, but I didn't feel suspicious, but I was told that you're almost at the end of the book. You might as well just continue. It was never like a hint, hint, nudge, nudge, but and I know Ellie didn't get that and spent the whole night like Severo just died.
It was so late. It was so late. I had to force myself to go to sleep, thinking that Cassius had just killed Severo and let Darrow's hand get cut off, and I despised Cassius all night. He was so close to redemption. So close, and then he turned around and he killed Severo. I hated him so much, like more than I ever hated him in the first 2 books. That whole night.
I allowed it too. I didn't give you one.
I would have been very pissed off at you if you had hinted at it.
I would have. I was like, because you were like, I gotta go to sleep. I'm like, okay, go to sleep. That's fine. Go to sleep.
Inside, you were like, oh, you don't want to do that.
I was like thinking, oh, too bad.
Mine was early. You guys were like, you might as well just continue. You're so close to the end.
Oh, I didn't. I just said, okay. But, anyways, what was the next question?
Was that, for you guys, the most surprising scene? Because it definitely was for me.
Yeah. It was a total shocker. I was like, oh, no, he didn't. I mean, I had to read it a couple of times. Like, the fact that Darrow says, like, then I see this look in Cassius's eyes that I've never seen before. And I'm all, wait, no, that's not supposed to be the way it happens and stuff. And then all of a sudden he's like, he shoots him, and there's no heartbeat, and there's blood everywhere, and I'm just like, oh my gosh.
And Darrow just loses it, and he's on the floor cradling Severo's body.
The thing about that scene, though, for me, was that I couldn't stop. I mean, it was mid on full speed. So I mean, full speed. I could not stop. I was just like, I have to keep reading. I have to know what happens. There was lack of time to kind of like take in really what was happening and to move forward.
Oh my God, because, Antonia's freaking, like, laughing hysterically, like, oh my gosh, that just happened, this is so hilarious. And then he lets her out, and he throws Severo's body in the, whatever, escape pod, along with Darrow and Mustang, and I'm like, what is happening?
Well, that's what I mean. Like, they gave you very little time to mourn for Severo, and I was like, I needed to get to that point where I can either mourn for Severo or there's something else happening. And whereas like with Rogue and with Ragnar and stuff, there was time for that. There was a slow down period where you can like start crying about it. But when Cassius had shot Severo, I was just like, I need to keep going. There's no time. They're doing stuff. This is happening all like too fast, and I'm like, where's the part when we get to cry for Darrow? and we couldn't get to that part yet. So that for me, I could not stop, and I was like really shocked that you guys were able to. I mean, I even spoke with somebody else, another friend of mine, and he did the same thing. It was like he was like, I have to stop. I'm so mad. I'm like,
okay, so here's my thing. Here's my thing. It gets to the point where, like, you know that you are getting so close to the point of no return of the book where, like, you cannot stop. And, like, there is that, like, very small lull there in the book where you're like, okay, if I stop now, I know I, like, can physically stop and then finish it the next time. But you can tell, like, if you keep going even a little bit more, you're not going to be able to stop. And at that point, like, I had to teach the next day, and it was like 1 a.m. And I was like, I can't stay up until 4 reading this.
Yeah, I don't think I had that problem.
I think Kate's frozen.
No,
No,
I'm
she's
not.
good.
Okay. Cool.
I don't move around enough, apparently. Hi.
She's just letting you have your freak out, okay? So, okay.
What else is new?
Yeah, like you said about not being able to mourn, because immediately after that, they cut off Darrow's hand. Like, the Jackal's just like, all right, he gives him some sort of numbing agent beforehand, which that was kind of him. But then, that was the one thing. I'm like, the bad guy is going to give you a numbing agent? I know he can still feel it, because obviously they speak of his excruciating pain, and they're all kind of taken into the inner sanctum of the Golds, and you think, oh my god, they're all about to be, Severo's dead, the rest of them are about to be killed on national television. And
Which you knew couldn't happen, but it was really terrifying.
well, that's the thing. I'm like, no, where's the turnaround? Where's the turnaround? Because this is not right. And the turnaround is Cassius, because he is redeeming himself. He's not a bad guy.
Oh my god. That was insane. And then I remember when the Cassius reveal came out, I immediately start texting Natasha again, being like, wait, Cassius is good. He wouldn't have killed Severo. Severo's not dead! Severo's not dead! Oh my god! Severo's not dead!
I think your exact words for Cassius was redemption!
Yes!
Because I was like, okay, I know what part you're in.
That's probably all I texted you. It was probably just
Yeah.
redemption. And then, there's no way Severo's dead! Severo's not dead! And then, can we talk about Severo's first word upon waking up, though?
No,
Yes.
because I can't say that word.
Notice
Is
I didn't
YouTube
actually
gonna yell?
say it.
I'm like, I can spell it probably.
Why?
F-U-U-U-U-U-U, something like that.
But that was amazing. Especially with, it's prominently featured in one of the first chapters, but I forgot about the snake bite, which is what they used to revive Severo.
And I love that Pierce Brown threw that in earlier in the book, so that we had experienced it before, and you're like, oh my god, it could bring you back from the dead! Because they said, like, not
I don't know if
literally.
he's necessarily dead, but yeah, from the
No, but they said, like, it's so, like, my mom says it's so strong it could bring you back from the dead. Like,
Mhm.
it was a joke, but, like, it's that strong. So it could bring somebody back from, like, practically being dead.
And how did you guys feel, like, up to that point? We realized there's this huge chunk of story in which Darrow has been a totally unreliable narrator, and we realize it when Cassius flips sides and Severo wakes back up. And were you okay with that?
Absolutely. I loved the idea of an unreliable narrator. At least in this instance, I don't know. I'm trying to recall if there were any other books that I've read that had that same scenario, and I can't remember. But in this instance, I loved it. I love the idea of just him telling you the story, but not telling you the full story. And so you get that element of surprise, which is brilliant for this book. I don't know if it would have been as fascinating or as fun and enjoyable if it wasn't for the way he narrates the story.
Mm-hmm.
So I loved it. myself.
I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure that sequences in the earlier Red Rising books, like battle sequences and involved with like the Iron Rain and stuff, do the same sort of thing where you don't
To a lesser degree. Yeah.
where you are at least not fully aware of what's happening. And then it kind of all gets revealed to you in a big way. So, but this was definitely like, this one takes the cake, give it the crown, it wins, you know?
Yes.
I mean, there are obviously very little instances where, like, I'm thinking of even when Darrow just, like, brought Mustang to his mom's house and showed her the video. Like, you didn't know he had that planned. But that's, like, a very little thing. I mean, like, at the time, it was emotion and everything. But compared to this, like, he didn't actually lie to us. He just, like, didn't tell us the whole plan. Whereas this one,
That's
we, like...
fine.
Yeah, right. But, like, in this one, he was actually, like, acting and making us think that all of this was happening that wasn't. Which was insane. I will say, so, in talking to my brother, this is, like, one of the very, very few series that my brother and I are both huge fans of. In talking to my brother, he said that when he got to that part, he was a little, that whole sequence where they're acting, he was a little annoyed because he's like, they're suddenly acting out of character. Like, this isn't how they would react in that situation. And then he's like, oh, because they're not really in that situation. That's awesome. So, like, I don't know if I particularly felt that way, but then again, I was a little bit too involved in the story to, like, take a step back and be like, they're acting a little bit out of character, because I'm like, this is happening, and this is happening, and this is happening, and this is happening, and I can't handle it, and oh my god, I'm gonna die. Anyway. Cassius was redeemed, people!
Yes, he was.
Which, I would like to point out that when the three of us had our conversation before this book came out, we stated that Roke could only have redemption in death, if at all, but Cassius could be redeemed. Thank you very much.
You are so not welcome.
Actually, Nostradamus up in here.
Characters.
Alright, so, did you guys have anything else to say about, of course, we have that great action sequence in which, you know, we take down Octavia, and we take down the Jackal, and at one point you think the Jackal's actually got them because he has all these nuclear weapons, and it's horrific, and of course, again, they turn the tables on him, and that was another thing you didn't even know was coming.
Mm-hmm. Like, okay, time for everybody to just turn their guns on Asia. Boom.
Yep. And then that happened. And
Yep.
And Mustang kind of becomes the new ruler. And I was really confused in that moment because while I recognized that that was a good choice, I'm like, wait a second, when was that decision made? Because a lot of it was based, a lot of the rising, if you will, is based on the actions of Darrow, who understandably doesn't want to be a ruler. But, you know, Severo's involved. You would assume that you wouldn't just be like, I am your new leader, this single person. You know, you'd think there'd be a different approach to it, but instead they're like giving her sacred objects and having her march through the halls with them, and she's already in charge. So what did you guys think of that?
What, having Mustang in charge?
Mm-hmm.
Just the fact that they just assumed that they gave her the charge. I liked it. for me, it did make sense. I mean, because she already had some ideas in place, and 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 they were, respectable. And the thing is that this is somebody that they can actually trust, fully. Like, even if they weren't on that side before, but putting Mustang there as a leader, they can still, like, go, okay, she's a gold, and work slowly out of that. So I thought that was well thought out. I thought it was a smart move, for them to have Mustang as the leader instead of, say Darrow. I'm like, did I just mash the two names together? Anyway, yeah, I just thought it was a smart move on their part. And that's all I have to say about that.
Did you just Forrest Gump that right there?
Yeah, because you guys were talking.
Yes, I happen to agree on that front, but I still had a little trouble with. I feel like that's something that the reader should have seen before it happened. Like, I do think she's the best person for the job, but I think there should have been some, like, even just a little aside of, hey, how do we think this government is going to work? Instead of just, being like,
just throwing
okay,
it in your
everyone's
face.
dead. Everyone, let me march through the hallways and tell everyone I'm the leader. Like, I don't know if that necessarily worked for me as much.
Wasn't she holding the head too?
Yes.
Ugh. I think knowing Mustang, I love the idea of her being the leader, knowing just the way she works and the fact that, like, she's been a part of Gold Society, she's been successful in it, so she knows that part, but she was also basically the only gold at first to accept Darrow, even if it wasn't right away. I should say the only gold that didn't have red connections or blood.
I'm all like, wait a minute.
To accept Darrow right away, even if it did take some time. So she's somebody that has the experience of leading, but the morality to incorporate these new ideas. So I think that she's the perfect person for it. I do think it happened a little fast. And, like, matter-of-factly. But, so, basically, same.
Same
all
thing.
in all, same thing.
Well, I think also in the fact that she kind of talks about how to lead people in Red Rising in the first book.
Totally. That's what I mean. Like, she was the perfect person for the job.
I'm saying that's kind of like the foreshadowing. I mean, it does happen in the first book, and you don't see it until now. But, like the books, kind of lead up to the fact that she is in there. She's in the political area of everything from the first book to the second book till now. So I guess, I mean, I understand what you guys are saying about, like, it could have given us a hint and stuff, but I think it shows throughout the book.
For me, it's less about the reader needing a hint and more about society, like, their society.
Well, yeah, but she was in that political area. That's what I mean. It's like they talk about her leadership in the institute, and then her being part of what was going on in book 2, I believe, and then earlier in book 3. You know, the part where she almost kills Darrow. Um, you know, she's in there. She's in there trying to help lead their society.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying about like, you know, needing some kind of like, hey, so who should you know, lead when we kill off this other
Oh,
evil
I
person?
know. How about Mustang? Yeah.
Yeah, just like a little something. But I'm moving on. Speaking of Mustang and morality and this, that, and the other thing, there is something that
Mm,
some people are taking a beef with, and
mm.
I'm more torn on it, but I'm not totally comfortable with it. Which is, of course, the reveal at the end, where shows up with a toddler and is like, by the way, this is your son. And I didn't tell you because it would have distracted you from war things. And if I didn't think that you were really up to the task thanks to war things, I was never even going to tell you you had a kid. Hi. Like,
Mm. Here's my one issue.
yeah.
I have a couple feelings about this. Number one, I think part of what hurt me so much about this is the reveal that came in book 2 when we find out that Io had been pregnant when she died, and how torn up Darrow was about that fact. And we saw then how much, like, he felt like he didn't even know that she was pregnant until this was years after she died. But he was like, he felt the loss of his child there. And so the fact that, like, now he has a child and he didn't, and it was hidden from him, I don't love that fact. I understand why she did it, and I understand her idea that at that moment he needed to be a rebel, not a father. And and like, she couldn't trust him at that moment. I completely understand her motivations, but it still didn't really sit easy with me. Personally, hang on, sorry, I'm almost done. Personally, I would have loved if in the little epilogue at the end, instead of what happened, where she's like, guess what? You have a 1-year-old kid, and he's been living with your mom who knows about him, but you didn't, and yay! I would love if, like, Mustang was pregnant at the end.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Like, I was okay with the fact that he existed. I was more torn about her not telling him, even though you can be like, oh, I think it would distract you. Well, a lot of stuff is going to distract people. You think he's going to be like, well, I'm just going to let the whole society go to hell because I have a child now. That's not realistic. I think people are willing to fight more when they have a child who is going to, you know, be affected by the changes that society makes. So, and I understand, I think it's more that on a personal level she didn't trust him. And she wasn't willing to trust him because she knew that it basically, for a while, she wasn't able to trust him because she found out that he was red, and she didn't really trust that in the fact that he had lied to her about it for so long and had lied to everyone about it for so long. So I feel like it wasn't as much of the war reasoning as it was the
Personal.
personally victimized by your decision to keep this from me, and therefore I'm going to keep something from you until I decide that it's okay. And that I didn't love. I know that, Nat, you feel a little bit differently about it, that you're pretty much okay with it, right?
I loved it. I'm more than okay with it. I actually there's several reasons why I loved the way that it ended, and the fact that she didn't tell him, because for me, I don't think it's not unrealistic for her to, you know, to not say that to him, to not tell him. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's going on. A lot of crap is going down. Um, and even though, yeah, we believe that even if he found out that he had a son, he would be able to fight for him. But I think, she just doesn't, she wasn't sure about the emotional level that he would be at, if he'd be able to emotionally set that aside, and deal with this, because he is a very emotional guy. He's a very emotional character. You can tell the way he, deals with Eo's death, the way he, finds out, how he reacts when he finds out about, his loss, his wife and his kids' death, and just everything that he's been through. So for me, I totally understand, why she would do it. I mean, to each his own if they want to reveal it or not. I mean, she asked for his mom's advice in regards to that, and it was his mom that said don't reveal it. And I think she trusted his mom enough to say maybe that is a good idea to not say anything, and just hopefully we can get through this, and at that time we can start fixing not only the society but themselves, and work together in building something between them, and then introducing the kid. And for me, like, that ending, seriously, I loved it because it was very different from just saying, oh, I'm pregnant, or like in the epilogue for Mockingjay, where they just show them have 2 kids, like this future. I love the idea that we don't get to see that, and we that we see something different, I guess. I actually cried, like I was so like overwhelmed with emotion at that point, that I was actually bawling at the end when she's like, this is your son and his name is Pax, and I was just like, oh my gosh, and it all came like full circle at that point. So for me, I didn't think it was unrealistic. I thought it was something that I can see happen. It's a rough society. It's not the best child rearing society there is. There's a lot of turmoil still to deal with too. So I think it was I think for me at least it was, I enjoyed that idea and the originality of it.
Okay. I did cry a little bit at that part too, but then after the fact, like, I'm not sure how I feel about that actually. But moving on.
I was just surprised that Darrow was completely okay with it.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I have a kid, and my mother knows. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, Morningstar, in the grand scheme of the trilogy, where does it rank for you?
As I told my sister when I was trying to convince her to read the books, I said, book 1 is awesome. Book 2 is flawless. Book 3 has fewer flaws than book 2.
That sounds about right.
That's actually the best way I've ever heard that described.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Because I thought Golden Sun was like unbelievable, and then Morningstar came out, and I'm like, oh my god.
It's really, for me, not that the rest of the book wasn't great, because it was, but that last 20% where we go full-on unreliable narrator and things get crazy, was the point where I was like, oh my god, this book.
I was like, okay, on like a 10-point rating, book 1 is like an 8.5. Book 2 is a 10. Book 3 is an 11. Yeah.
I would say book 1 is a 9, but that's me.
You rounded up my 8.5.
And one more question before we quit for the evening is, there's going to be more of this because we're getting a new series called Iron Gold that takes place in the same world. It's going to follow the fallout of the Rising and what the world becomes after the fact. Predictions, thoughts, give me.
No. I'm
I'm
overwhelmed.
scared. I'm scared. I'm scared that the people that I love are gonna die, and I don't want that to
No,
happen.
stop. No.
I'm
No.
just saying. I'm scared about that happening because I've heard it
No.
happen sometimes.
Ugh.
Do we think it can happen? Like,
Well, especially if they're minor characters. Oh my gosh, no.
But
talk
I
over you.
mean,
No,
obviously
Darrow.
there's gonna be just more crap to deal with.
Do you
And
think it's going to be taking place right away, or do we think there's going to be a time gap?
I
How
hope
much-
considering he's had a time gap between each of the books in the one series, I have a feeling there will be a time gap.
Yes.
At
So-
least
yeah,
at least 5 years.
My big theory, and I have absolutely nothing to base this on other than the fact that they made a pretty big deal about him in the last scene, is that
Lysander.
going to focus around Lysander, who is Octavia DeLune's grandson, who is kind of raised under her tutelage, but is
Who's going to be besties with Cassius? With Redemption Cassius.
yes, because Redemption Cassius is like, I'm just gonna adopt this child, pretty much. Not full on adopt him. I don't think he's becoming his father, but he's becoming his mentor. And so I think it's going to be about that character when he is probably in his,
17s, 18s,
late
19s.
teens or
Yeah.
early.
There.
Would give us. I think he's like around 12,
Yeah, I think so.
and so that would give us if he was 18, like a 6-year gap in the story, and all our other characters would be in their late 20s.
Crazy.
So they would be the.
Well, they end at I think. Oh yeah, I think they're 26 by the end of Morningstar.
Really?
Yeah.
26. I honestly lost track. So they'll be in their early 30s.
I think. Hold on.
They'll
I might be wrong.
adults.
I don't know.
20. No.
No,
never mind.
23. I think 23 or 24.
Maybe. Yeah. Actually, I was thinking 6 years. It's a 6-year gap between book 1 and then all the way to book 3. So if he started what?
So,
16? Didn't he start at 16
Yes.
in Red Rising?
Yeah.
So actually, he's 22. I think he might be 23. I forget. I had to look at the Wikia
I think
to
they're
find out for sure.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That's not a big. So other than being scared, we're just waiting for it.
I'm scared.
I'm scared, but I'm obviously excited.
I'm excited
I
to
definitely
see-
can't wait
Well,
to read about it.
What's funny, if you remember, Kate, you were Natasha and I had both finished the book when this news dropped, but you were still reading it.
And I wasn't allowed to read the book.
And I read the article, and I'm like, okay, Kate, here's what you need to know, but do not read the article. Because you were at the point where you thought Severo was dead at that point.
Yeah.
And it said
And
that
they
we're going to see
specifically-
Severo again.
Mhm.
So I'm like, here's what you need to know. Takes place after this, and we will see some of the characters from it. Don't read it.
Fair enough.
Because that would have been a
All right.
spoiler.
Any last comments before any of this business, before we sign off for the night?
I love Pierce Brown, and I love this series, and it destroyed me in a wonderful way, and I could go on forever. Yeah.
What? Well, whether or not you think it's a YA or an adult novel. I highly recommend it for everyone. For those who read YA, it starts off kind of that in that age range, but it definitely quickly grows out of it. So either way, it's just an excellent series, and yeah, highly recommend it. I don't know what's going on with the lights here. Anyway,
Yeah, your light's flashing.
I know, I saw that. I'm like, what is that?
It's Mustang.
It's my head. Like if I tilt it this way, but then if I go here, it stops.
No, it's Mustang. She's coming.
All right. So I would just say this trilogy is phenomenal, and I don't think it's going to alienate you if you only read YA, because I don't think the characters ever get to the point where they're exceptionally mature, and it feels...
I pretty much only read YA, and I'm obsessed.
Yeah. So I think that everyone will love it. It's a great, great series, and I'm just really happy we got to chat about it, and I'm happy there's more coming. So with that in mind, thank you all for joining us. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Bye.